Good evening. You're watching London Live News at 6 with Tanya Francis. Coming up tonight, the Prime Minister and the Chancellor Rishi Sunak will be issued with fines by the Met for breaking the lockdown rules the P himself made the country follow, as the number of fixed penalties handed out in number 10 tops 50. Shining a light on the hidden shame and fear of violence against parents and carers as the Mayor looks towards addressing the issue after revealing startling figures today. We'll have an update on London's weather in the next 10 minutes. Plus, Chelsea with a mountain to climb in Madrid as the holders look to complete an unlikely comeback in the Champions League quarter-final tonight. Plus, we'll find out how the new Dean of St Paul's plans to rejuvenate the City of London. First tonight, number 10 have confirmed that Prime Minister Boris Johnson, his wife Carrie Johnson and Chancellor Rishi Sunak are among those being issued with fines for breaching COVID-19 rules following allegations of lockdown parties in Whitehall and Downing Street. The Met Police have issued at least 30 more fines on top of the 20 sent out last month. They relate to specific breaches rather than individuals, meaning one person could receive more than one fine. Well, the new set of penalties comes at the same time as an independent investigation has been launched into the Chancellor's personal finances after questions have been raised about his and his wife's tax affairs. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has today published research commissioned by his Violence Reduction Unit into violence and abuse by children towards parents. Data published today reveals that at least 40% of parents or carers who experienced violence by their children between 2011 and 2020 refused to report it. He went down to nightlife venue Peckham Levels to discuss the issue.
One of the things that we've got to recognise is, understandably, many parents don't want their child being criminalised or removed from the home. And it's not a policing issue. Sometimes it gets to crisis point and it can get to the police. It's an early intervention issue. It's getting involved at an earlier stage to find out what's the issue at source, what's the problem at source, and then to help the family. You've got to be helping the whole family, not just the child, not just the parent, but the entire family. And by intervening earlier, by taking these steps, you can avoid a crisis point being reached where a child takes serious violence against the parents, and we've got to avoid that. What we do know is many families suffer in silence. What we do know is often when a family goes to a GP or a social worker or the council, they don't know what to do. And that's one of the reasons why we want this report circulated as widely as possible so practitioners know what to do. One of the recommendations is a helpline. We think it's a good recommendation. Another recommendation is a proper definition of what is violence against a parent from a child. Another recommendation is better multi-agency work. And so there are 10 recommendations and we're going to take them forward.
Now, climate activists forced Lloyd's of London to close its headquarters after using super glue, chains and bike locks to block the entrance. Today, more than 60 Extinction Rebellion activists began surrounding the Lime Street building from 7 a.m. to stop staff from entering the site. The environmental protest group said it's demanding that Lloyd's of London stops insuring fossil fuels projects. They also confirmed similar protests will continue throughout the week, asking in a statement for the government to put an end to all new fossil fuel investment. Now, more people are worried about their finances than about catching coronavirus, new research suggests. Almost 4 in 10 people are worried about their finances, up from 32% in January, and the highest level since the start of the pandemic, according to researchers at University College London. Well, researchers said that the changes likely reflect concerns about the cost of living crisis, while the lifting of legal restrictions in England has affected how people view coronavirus. Now, Londoners are changing the way that they use energy to offset rising bills and the increased cost of living. This is according to research by Smart Energy GB, who also found that 32% of Brits are taking part in energy-saving hacks that actually don't work, like hand-washing dishes instead of using a dishwasher. Well, I spoke to TV presenter Helen Skelton earlier today, who also co-authored a report on how we can save energy. She gave me an insight into what they found and some useful tips.
For me, the most worrying thing is that 3.9 million Brits have sought out advice for debts for the first time ever. And that, to me, shows that people are concerned. You know, the energy crisis, the cost of living is all over the news. It's all everybody's talking about. But what does that translate into in our real everyday lives, and it seems like people are concerned. So the reason that Smart Energy GB have put together this panel and this report is to try to encourage people to find tangible solutions to get control of their bills and work out what's happening. By getting a smart meter installed, you know what you're spending. You can see in pounds and pence in real time what is going out. And that is one of the key things that helps you take control, because you know then at the end of the month what you're going to spend on your bills, what you've got left to spend on the things that you want to do. Because, you know, the cost of living is going up, but people still have to live. It would be awful to say that you never eat out again, you never buy clothes again. And if you know what you're spending on your bills, you know what you've got left as disposable income at the end of the month. So definitely getting a smart meter is one of the main things we're encouraging people to do. But other things are the obvious. Reduce your consumption if you can. Again, yes, people have to live. That's not a ghost, that's my dog. Yes, people have to live. Yes, people, want to watch TV. But if you're not watching the TV, turn it off completely. If you're not charging your phone, unplug it. Think about insulation. So, if you haven't got double glazing, maybe thick curtains. All of those little things will add up and make a difference. If you're not going to be in the house, set your heating to a timer. We're hurtling into spring. Turn that heating down.
The research is showing something quite interesting, though. People are trying to be inventive in doing these little things to reduce their bills. But from what I can see, not all of them are actually working. What are some of the myths of things that people might be doing that are actually not having much of an impact at all?
That people do, and the one that everyone's latched onto in this report is the dishwasher. Everybody thinks that by not using the dishwasher and hand washing the dishes, you're saving a load of energy, but actually that's not true. Using the dishwasher is a lot more efficient than doing the whole family's dishes in the sink. So don't be afraid to use the dishwasher. And again, get smart about your heating. So don't turn the heating off completely and then fire it up when you want it on. Think about whether it's more efficient to have it on a low constant heat. It's all about how you use it in your home. We can't control energy prices. Yes, on the 1st of April, the cap went up. And yes, there is talk of things going on in October and going up again. So I think everybody would agree that actually we haven't got a crystal ball. We don't know what's going to happen with energy prices. So in the meantime, anything that we can do to reduce our consumption, take control of our bills, know what we're spending, can only be a good thing for mind and for wallet. Obviously, if you don't know what your bills are going to be at the end of the month, how can you be prepared to pay for them? If your spending is out of control, how are you going to be able to pay your bills? So this encouraging people to take those little steps to reduce consumption and reduce their bills, and encouraging people to get a smart meter is all about encouraging people to take control.
Well, there you have it. Now, there's an urgent safety inspection of the whole of the Metropolitan line taking place after a fault was found with the train wheels. Well, the disruption is expected to last for weeks, with the tube line being impacted for this weekend's FA Cup semi-final. Manchester City will take on Liverpool this Saturday and Crystal Palace versus Chelsea on Sunday. Well, TfL have said that they're working with the FA to circulate travel advice before the matches, so take a look at any alternative routes if you are headed out to watch the footy this weekend. Now, staying with football, Thomas Tuchel believes Chelsea face a huge disadvantage in overturning their Champions League deficit to Real Madrid, as the Spanish side have been able to make 5 substitutions throughout the season. While Chelsea's reign as European champion looks set to come to an end as they head to the Spanish capital, needing to overturn a 3-1 quarter-final first leg defeat to the 13-time winners at Stamford Bridge last week.
We face a huge disadvantage in terms of physicality because Real Madrid has a whole year with 5 changes, and we play the most demanding league, and we played the most matches throughout the season and throughout 22. So it's not always easy to play a physical game. We are a team that needs the physicality, the sharpness and the commitment and the investment to be a special team, to perform as a away team in Bernabeu. It is even more difficult if you have to earn a certain result, if you need to win with a minimum of 2 goals or better even, or maybe even a 3 goal difference. That makes it almost impossible and very, very difficult, but it's worth trying, and it's still a stage where you can also overperform. We need to overperform.
Well, kick-off for that match is 8 o'clock UK time. It'll be happening in Madrid. Now, nominees for this year's Turner Prize have come through, and the artist behind this, The giant whipped cream sculpture that you might have seen on the fourth plinth in Trafalgar Square, it's been nominated by our artist Heather Phillipson, has been shortlisted for the annual Art Award. She's an award-winning poet and visual artist who has been nominated for the sculpture of the dollop of cream, a giant fly, a drone, and also her solo exhibition at the Tate Britain. Well, there's a £25,000 prize up for grabs, with the winner being announced later this year in December. Let's give you an update on the weather now. Lows overnight around 11 degrees. Wednesday will be mainly dry with sunshine at first, but some areas of cloud will gradually develop along with a few light showers. A mild day starting dry and sunny on Thursday, but cloud will increase later with a chance of the odd spot of drizzle. And if we look to Friday, similar sunny spells will develop into the afternoon. It's time for a break, but coming up, London is shown to have the highest overall levels of female leadership, but a study has found that overall female-led companies generate 58% less turnover than male-led competitors. More on the way.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Welcome back. On to some of the day's other headlines affecting Londoners. The Conservative MP Crispin Blunt has apologised for a statement he made defending his fellow MP Imran Ahmed Khan, who was convicted of sexual assault. Khan was found guilty of assaulting a 15-year-old boy in 2008, with Blunt calling the verdict a dreadful miscarriage of justice. He made the comments on his website, but has since apologised for causing any upset to victims of sexual assault and deleted the comments after Conservative bosses called them wholly unacceptable. Rising fuel prices and household bills have slowed people spending elsewhere as consumer confidence sinks. Well, this is according to research by Barclaycard, who found the total sales increased by 3.1% last month in comparison to 6.7% in February. Experts from the British Retail Consortium have said the rising cost of living and the war in Ukraine has shaken consumer confidence in a way that we've not seen since the 2008 financial crisis. Research by the bank also showed that card spending has increased by nearly 18% compared with the same period in 2019. Well, it comes as UK workers have experienced the biggest fall in real pay for nearly 9 years. This is according to figures from the Office for National Statistics, who reported regular pay decreased by 1.8% from November to January this year. Pay has increased this quarter by 4%, but has been outweighed by inflation, which is expected to rise further in the autumn. Well, Chancellor Rishi Sunak has said the government is helping with a £22 billion support package, but Labour have hit back, criticising their decision to go ahead with this month's increase in tax. Now, pensions are set to rise by 3.1% this year, with new levels coming into effect this week. But with inflation already at more than double, there are concerns for the elderly in the capital. Well, Henry has been speaking with a pensions and retirement analyst about the figures and how to get the best retirement help.
So we've got this increase in state pension, but if we look at the rising cost of food and bills, obviously we've had, a massive surge in energy prices, for instance, in recent weeks. And when we look at kind of our budgets over the next few months, this state pension increase isn't really going to go close to touching those increases. So a lot of pensioners, if they don't have much in the way of other pensions and investments, they could find that they're having a very difficult few months ahead.
So there's something called pension credit, which is designed to help those largely or wholly reliant on their state pension, as you just mentioned. For those who don't know, how does it help those pensioners that are largely or wholly reliant on their state pension?
The pension credit is a really, really useful benefit. So it tops up the income of the poorest pensioners. You can get up to £182 a week on pension credit. Now, in addition to that, if you find that you are caring for somebody or you are disabled, you can qualify for further top-ups. What it also does as well is it's a really valuable gateway benefit. So in addition to the income top-up that it gives you, it will also allow you to access help with bills, so things like council tax, housing benefits if you need it, help with dental care, NHS glasses, for instance. So over the course of a retirement, these extra benefits that add on can actually add up to several £1,000s, which makes a real difference to pensioners.
And for those living in London, how does it compare for pensioners compared to elsewhere in the UK?
So obviously pensioners here, in London, I think they have a particularly challenging time because obviously, the cost of rents, mortgages tend to be a lot higher than they are in other parts of the country. Transport, for instance, as well. We're seeing, big increases in that. So I do think that, London's pensioners are having a particularly tough time right now, and that if they feel that they can qualify for pensions credit, then they certainly need to look into it.
Because one thing with pension credit that I didn't know, but 2 out of 3 people claim it. So there's a third goes unclaimed. So why do people not claim something that they are entitled to?
I think there's a few reasons for that. I think a lot of people don't know that it exists. I think there's also a few misconceptions there in that people don't realise that you can own your own home and still qualify for pension credit. You can have some savings and still qualify for pension credit. So it's always worth checking. You know, if you do have some savings, it is still worth checking. I think also there's a sense of pride there as well, and that they don't want to be seen to be falling back on the benefit system. But what I would say is that it's not worth kind of struggling in your later years like this if you don't have to. This is a benefit that you are entitled to, so it's worth checking to see if you can claim it.
What advice, away from trying to get people to claim the credit, then what advice would you be giving to pensioners so that they can be helped in as many ways as possible, with their pension?
So I think, first of all, if you are already a pensioner, as well as looking at pensions credit, it might be worth seeing what other benefits you might be able to be entitled to. So another very underclaimed benefit is housing benefit. So it might be worth seeing if that's something that you can make use of. If you have your own workplace or personal pensions that you're drawing down on, if it's at all possible, if you're able to cut back, or maybe to try not to take large sums from your pension now, because it might kind of put you at a disadvantage in future if inflation kind of continues at its current high rates.
Well, that was Henry there speaking to Helen. Now, a study has found that female-led companies generate 58% less turnover than male-led companies. The stats have come from the Gender Index, a new tool which tracks the work of 4.4 million companies in the UK. It did show, though, that the highest overall levels of female leadership were here in London. Jill Pay is the former Sergeant-at-Arms in the House of Commons, the first woman to have the role, and she's been telling Alicia more.
It's actually groundbreaking because it's the largest research study into female entrepreneurship that's ever been undertaken. So it covers data on 4.5 million active companies across the UK. But the real nub of it, if you like, is all that data is available on the website for everybody to access for free. So that's the first time that this kind of data has been analysed by gender and is available to everybody for free.
What could the benefits be of its uses?
Well, the purpose behind it is to create positive change for women in enterprise driven by this data. So it's about raising awareness. It's about this accurate picture of the UK company landscape. So currently 16.8% of all these companies are led by women. And the potential for women-owned businesses and companies to contribute more to the economy is huge. I don't know if you've heard of the Rose Review into entrepreneurship, but that predicted that if women started and grew their companies at the same rate as men, that could add another £250 billion to the economy. So this is about raising awareness for investors. At the moment, less than 1% of venture capital and private equity investment is in women-led companies. And yet they're proven to be more risk averse than male-led companies. They sustain longer. They have a steady, continuous growth path. So they're a great investment, but at the moment, not enough of that investment is happening.
Yeah, so the study has found that female-led companies generated 58% less turnover than male-led companies.
That's right.
What needs to be done to change this?
Well, I think the key thing is the investment. You know, women have challenges getting investors to invest in their businesses. So that's one part of it. Another part of it is having more local support for women-led companies. So growth hubs, and there are quite a number of them. NatWest have growth hubs. The British Library has this huge initiative to put business centres in their libraries. I think they've already got 19 across London, but they need them all over the country as well. Mentoring, that's a key part of helping a woman to grow her business. Having somebody outside the business give them a different perspective, who've got different experiences, so they can guide them and act as a sounding board. So all these things together, and the other one, of course, that's really important is caring responsibilities. So it's been highlighted through the pandemic that women take the lion's share of the responsibility for caring. And I think if the government, that is a government issue, I think they need to recognise that. Then if more can be done to level out those caring responsibilities, the women have more opportunity to grow the businesses. And ultimately, this is going to benefit the economy. So, it's really something that is worth driving forward. And that's what we're trying to do. We want a fairer future. That's the point.
Yeah, absolutely. Opportunity definitely being a massive factor. The findings have shown better news for London. Highest overall levels of female leadership were here in the capital. How can we make that reflective in the rest of the UK? And why in London, do you think?
Well, I think in London there's a higher density of women-led companies. And I think there's good practice that can be modelled elsewhere. And similarly, the highest percentages of fast growth women-led companies are in Wales and Scotland at 12% each. So similarly, we need to be looking there and see what's the innovation, what's the good practice that can be modelled elsewhere.
That was Alicia there speaking to Jill. You're watching London Live News with Tanya Francis. A reminder of our top story coming up after the break. Plus, the soon-to-be new Dean of St Paul's on how he hopes to rejuvenate the City of London.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Welcome back. A reminder of some of the main headlines from across the capital today. Number 10 have confirmed that Prime Minister Boris Johnson, his wife Carrie Johnson and Chancellor Rishi Sunak are among those being issued with fines for breaching COVID-19 rules following allegations of lockdown parties in Whitehall and Downing Street. The Met Police have issued at least 30 more fines on top of the 20 sent out last month. They relate to specific breaches rather than individuals, meaning one person could receive more than one fine. Well, the new set of penalties comes at the same time as an independent investigation has been launched into the Chancellor's personal finances after questions have been raised about his and his wife's tax affairs. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has today published research commissioned by his Violence Reduction Unit into violence and abuse by children towards parents. Data published today reveals that at least 40% of parents or carers who experienced violence by their children between 2011 and 2020 refused to report it. He went down to nightlife venue Peckham Levels to discuss the issue.
One of the things that we've got to recognise is, understandably, many parents don't want their child being criminalised or removed from the home. And it's not a policing issue. Sometimes it gets to crisis point and it can get to the police. It's an early intervention issue. It's getting involved at an earlier stage to find out what's the issue at source, what's the problem at source, and then to help the family. You've got to be helping the whole family, not just the child, not just the parent, but the entire family. And by intervening earlier, by taking these steps, you can avoid a crisis point being reached where a child takes serious violence against the parents, and we've got to avoid that. What we do know is many families suffer in silence. What we do know is often when a family goes to a GP or a social worker or the council, they don't know what to do. And that's one of the reasons why we want this report circulated as widely as possible so practitioners know what to do. One of the recommendations is a helpline. We think it's a good recommendation. Another recommendation is a proper definition of what is violence against a parent from a child. Another recommendation is better multi-agency work. And so there are 10 recommendations and we're going to take them forward.
Now, climate activists forced Lloyd's of London to close its headquarters after using super glue, chains and bike locks to block the entrance. Today, more than 60 Extinction Rebellion activists began surrounding the Lime Street building from 7 a.m. to stop staff from entering the site. The environmental protest group said it's demanding that Lloyd's of London stops insuring fossil fuels projects. They also confirmed similar protests will continue throughout the week, asking in a statement for the government to put an end to all new fossil fuel investment. Now, more people are worried about their finances than about catching coronavirus, new research suggests. Almost 4 in 10 people are worried about their finances, up from 32% in January, and the highest level since the start of the pandemic, according to researchers at University College London. Well, researchers said that the changes likely reflect concerns about the cost of living crisis, while the lifting of legal restrictions in England has affected how people view coronavirus. Now, nominees for this year's Turner Prize have come through, and the artist behind this, the giant whipped cream sculpture that you might have seen on the 4th plinth in Trafalgar Square, it's been nominated by our artist Heather Phillipson, has been shortlisted for the annual Art Award. She's an award-winning poet and visual artist who has been nominated for the sculpture of the dollop of cream, a giant fly, a drone, and also her solo exhibition at the Tate Britain. Well, there's a £25,000 prize up for grabs, with the winner being announced later this year in December. Let's look at this now. The new Dean of St Paul's has been announced to take over in September of this year, with experience including Westminster Abbey. The Very Reverend Andrew Tremlett will take over leadership at the cathedral and oversee its recovery from the impact of COVID-19. Henry has been speaking to the new Dean about how he hopes to play a central role in the rejuvenation of the City of London.
I am absolutely thrilled, Henry. St Paul's is, an iconic place, not just in the City of London, but globally. It's a great privilege to be coming. There is a fantastic team in place, and I hope that some of the experiences I've been able to build up over the past 15 years working in cathedral settings, I can add some value to what's going on there.
So for those who don't know, what does the Dean of St Paul's do and oversee?
The Dean is the is the head of the cathedral, overall responsible for the cathedral. We have a large staff team, a mixture of maintenance and security and liturgy and worship and all that sort of thing. So it's quite a mixed crew. I think the staff is about 130, but of course St Paul's welcomes hundreds of thousands of visitors every year. So there's a large visitor services team as well. And my role is to oversee both the practical side of that, but also the worshipping life of the cathedral as well, and to represent the cathedral in London and the diocese.
So you just mentioned there's two things that you've got to oversee. How do you go about balancing the two?
Yeah, in fact, for me, there isn't really, they're two sides of the same coin. I think I'd say that mission and worship isn't just something sort of privately for individuals, but actually it's part of our bigger life. And the visitor services side provides some of the resources to support mission and worship, as well as, of course, giving people access to this fabulous building, the heritage, the history. And often people come in sort of with one view. They're coming in to sort of see St Paul's in all its glory. But actually, while they're there, they'll stop and light a candle. They'll say a prayer. There are regular prayers on the hour. They might join in a service. So it's not quite so, either or. I think a lot of people, it's a both and.
It's quite an important moment for you coming into St Paul's, as you'll have to oversee the recovery after COVID-19. What sort of effect has the pandemic had in relation to you, and what do you need to make sure that you do to prosper in your new role?
It's a really good question, Henry, and it is one that impacts every cathedral around the country. And, every cathedral has seen a catastrophic fall in visitor numbers, just as any heritage site has. But I'd have to say that's been particularly acute in London because of the dependence on overseas tourism. So in one way, that's been really difficult. But what's really impressed me about the team at St Paul's, and I think has been absolutely fantastic, is that they've seen it as an opportunity to reach out to London audiences, to UK audiences. So in fact, their numbers are really pretty good at the moment. But it's mostly on the back of UK visitors rather than overseas visitors. So when the economy opens up more later on in the year, I think that there's good confidence that numbers will return. And in that mix, I think we're going to see a lot more UK visitors, which is fantastic news for St Paul's.
As we move further into the 21st century, how big a role does the church, and more so the cathedral, the St Paul's Cathedral, play in everyday life?
It's really interesting. If you look back historically, people's sort of institutional belonging to the church, actually sort of signing on the dotted line, has declined over a century and a half. It's a very long-standing thing. But people's engagement with their faith and spirituality, I think, is of a different level. Actually, people, many people still have an active faith. They'll pray, they have their beliefs. And particularly in London, in a very diverse culture, faith is part of the background. So one of the things that cathedrals does is we don't sort of, as people come in the door, say, are you a card-carrying believer? Are you signed up to X, Y, and Z? We simply welcome people in of all faiths and none, and we provide a kind of space for them. Now, that's a great strength for cathedrals that I think is more difficult with smaller parish churches. And it's one of the strengths that cathedrals have to sort of welcome people on their own terms and for them to make of it what it is. Of course, the other side, which St Paul's has done fantastically well over many years, is being a place of public debate and of gathering. So not just gathering for major public occasions like, will happen at the Jubilee, but also for discussion and wrestling with some of the difficult issues around faith and society and poverty and all those sorts of things. I tend not to think of the church as kind of, an hour on Sunday morning and a very kind of narrow thing. I tend to see the church in terms of of everyday life, and particularly people's working lives and education as well.
Well, that was Henry there with the new Dean of St Paul's Cathedral. Time for a break, but in the next part of the show, how one Londoner has turned his life around after his time in prison. We'll meet the former gang member releasing new music and trying to inspire younger generations.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Hello and welcome back to the last part of the show for tonight. A former South London gang member is releasing new music after being released from prison and turning his life around. Going by the name of Noble One BOF, he's now an ambassador for the Irene Taylor Trust, working with young people at risk of offending to help prevent them from following in his footsteps. Well, after being in and out of prison for 15 years, Noble's new EP is called Benefits of Freedom, with the single name No Games. Well, Henry spoke to him about his journey.
Obviously, growing up, if you don't have the guidance, if you don't have the support, you're just doing what you feel is best. You're doing what you see in it. I've been there, and now I'm out and I'm doing something different, and I'm seeing results, and I feel like I'm beginning to make a difference, not just for myself, for the ones around me. And hopefully, as my career picks up, even people that don't know me can get to hear my story and know, Raj, you know what, a change is possible. Do you get it? And if I can catch some of the younger population from an early age, then they don't have to go through what I've gone through to be able to get to where I am now. Do you get it? They could be 15 years ahead of me, car I feel like I'm 15 years behind. But at the same time, I feel like I'm ahead of people that haven't been to jail because I'm focused and I know what I'm doing.
You talk about that career. That's, of course, writing music. Why did you decide to start writing in prison then?
I guess when I was in prison, I had nothing else but to do, so I started to write down bits and bobs. I might come up with 1 and 2 rhymes, but it's about me. I'm like, raw, no, I like this, and you start adding bits more, and eventually, like, I started rapping to people, man. Like, raw, you're hard.
You've got a new EP out, Benefits of Freedom. In that, there's a song, No Games. What's it about?
A little up-tempo, rappy, yes. It's a nice song, good song. No games in it. The title says it. I'm here to stay. I'm not playing no games. But at the same time, you're gonna be able to enjoy the music. You're gonna be able to bubble with it. You understand? Can catch a groove with it. But then when you're taking in the words, because like, yeah, I feel my man. I know where he's coming from. Do you get it?
Yeah, absolutely. Your music, with not just your music, you're trying to help people, but you're also a charity ambassador helping youngsters as well. Why did you decide, lots of people, when they come out of prison, they try and move on from it, but you're trying to help people before they go to prison as well.
It's easy to be caught up in the system. And I'm a prime example of that. So I met up with the Irene Taylor Trust just before I got released from my last sentence. I done a project with them inside the prison where I worked with them for 4 days building music. Next week I came out and then they asked if I wanted to join the group. From that I started doing like little programs with them, and then from there they gave me the chance to be an ambassador, and I took that with both hands. Again, if I can make a difference to anyone's life who's nearly going through anything I've gone through, then what I went through was worth it.
One thing I noticed that I thought was really interesting is that you're an ex-prisoner artist on an ex-prisoner label with an ex-prisoner management. That's so unique, isn't it?
Do you know it is? Alright, cool. So a downfall of mine, well, I don't think it is, but loads of people around me say like, "Raw, I need to kick open the door before I think about bringing everyone." But my thing is, I'm trying to fly with everyone. Everyone around me, point blank period, has to be on the same wavelength that I'm on.
We've spoken about how you're helping people potentially before they go to prison, and then of course people in prison and after prison. Do you think there's still a lot more to be done when it comes to rehabilitation and actually giving people a second chance, especially once they're out after serving their sentence?
I've had many probation officers in my time of being caught in the system. My probation officer now, she's a star, ace, sees what I'm doing, works with me, encourages me, and does everything that she can to help me reach the next level. I've never felt like a probation officer has done that for me before. So right now I feel like I'm in a unique position. You're coming out of prison and you've got a plan, you've got goals, but everywhere you turn, you're being held back, you're being restricted. Then eventually you're like, raw, forget this. And you go back to what you know, whether it's right or wrong. I've been through all of those struggles where they feel like I'm hard-headed, I'm not listening to what's going on, or I don't care, or I've got my. It's not that. I'm just focused. I know what I'm doing, and if I can be able to maneuver the system and get to where I'm getting and get to, then coming like I will be the ears or the mouth, whatever it is, for my counterparts.
That's Noble One BOF speaking to Henry there. His new EP, Benefits of Freedom, it's out on the 22nd of April. Now, the first solo exhibition of paintings by artist Pam Evelyn has opened at the Approach Gallery in Bethnal Green. It's called Built on Clay. The show's title takes its name from the geological composition of the City of London, which has a predominantly clay foundation. Well, the gallery's director has been explaining more.
This is an exhibition by Pam Evelyn, who's a young British painter who we actually discovered at the Slade. She's still a student now, but at the Royal College of Art. We wouldn't normally be showing somebody so young. She's 26 years old, but we just felt as though the work was just really very powerful, very strong when we saw it at her degree show. And we offered her a show. She first showed here in a group show last year, but this is her first solo exhibition. The exhibition by Pam is called Built on Clay, which is a title that she kind of came up with referring to London, actually. It was the fact that London was built on clay, but the show isn't about London. It's not really about the city, even though they were painted here in the city. But it's more of a feeling of clay being something that's really kind of quite visceral, something that's really kind of quite unstable, and to actually build something solid on something like clay is something that she really kind of feels as though is some kind of comparison to the paintings and the way that she makes paintings. The fact that you start with a kind of blank canvas and you're building on it, and it's a kind of really kind of quite a moving kind of experience, and to actually make these paintings and to actually have something that is sort of feels solid at the end, but it's also something that's very kind of quite slippery, I guess. They're just really fantastic, large, powerful, expressive paintings, and she's really somebody that we kind of felt as though just really is just such a natural, gifted painter. The painters are very confident. Her ability to kind of move the paint around is just something that we found really exciting. The colour, the way she applies the paint, but just to actually do something of this scale is less something that we found was really very impressive for somebody of her age. I mean, they're predominantly abstract paintings, but there is certain kind of landscape comes out from them. There's sometimes figuration appears as well. But when we first met her, she was actually working down in the outdoors, down by the sea. And so the coast is something that really kind of becomes a real influence to her, but sea, landscape, but not really kind of painting things directly, but just more of a feeling of these kind of things. The feeling of the sea, the kind of looseness, and just kind of really just tries to kind of encapsulate the feeling of a landscape and being part of it. We really feel as though she's got a bright future ahead of her. All of the paintings in this exhibition have sold to very good collectors, and we are going to be showing her in New York in a month's time in a big art fair there called Independent, so we'll be doing a solo exhibition of the work there. And we'll show her, and other galleries will be interested in showing her. She's just really, I feel, is somebody that's going to just become more and more kind of successful, really, yeah. And yeah, people will come along, see the show. Like, the response to the work so far has been fantastic. I mean, they look amazing in the space here. The scale looks really kind of fantastic with the high ceilings here. And so, yeah, there's a lot of people who just get into the fact that these are kind of very visceral paintings. I think to actually kind of come and see them in person, they're not sort of, it's not Instagram art. It's like something you really feel as though somebody's really going to come along and experience these large paintings and the texture and the whole feel of them, really.
That's Built on Clay. It's on at the Approach in Bethnal Green until the 15th of May. Let's bring you an update on the weather before we end the show for tonight. Lows overnight around 11 degrees. Wednesday will be mainly dry with sunshine at first, but some areas of cloud will gradually develop along with a few light showers. A mild day starting dry and sunny on Thursday, but cloud will increase later with a chance of the odd spot of drizzle. Friday, similar sunny spells will develop in the afternoon. Well, that's all from us this evening. We shall see you tomorrow from 6 with more news from across London. Have a lovely evening.